There are no limits to what you can achieve.
Devon Clunas is a former police chief from Winnipeg. In 2012, he became the first black officer to hold that position in the country. During his time in charge, Clunas focused not just on fighting crime, but on trying to build trust, especially with Indigenous communities. Ingrid Berkeley is a former deputy chief for Peel Regional Police in Mississauga, Ontario. She was the highest-ranking black female police officer in Canada. Berkeley says policing is about community building and forming relationships with residents. And thanks to both of you for joining us. Devon Clunas, let's start with you. We've seen a few situations recently in Canada, including this weekend, where police have responded to mental health calls and they end up in fatalities. Should we be rethinking the response to those kinds of calls?
Ian, I can tell you that Canadian police really is some of the best that you'll find anywhere on the planet, well trained. But I can tell you that these outcomes are certainly not what is desired by police or the community. And so in this situation, I said, yes, it's really important that we come together and really rethink the way that we respond to these critical incidents, because it's going to take a system response to correct this.
So give me an example of if someone came to you and said, how do we rethink that response? What would you say?
I would say we really need to start looking at providing mechanisms within the community. First, the preventative pieces, but also within our institutions. Do we have other trained entities that can attend with police? Do we do a better triaging of the call prior to dispatch? So these are all the things that we can begin to look at to rectify the situation.
And Ingrid Berkeley, you've seen the coverage of protests across Canada. We all have, and you've seen people who say they're angry at what they describe as anti-black racism and brutality by police. What would you tell those protesters?
Well, I would certainly say that anyone who is joining a police organization, they're not coming in with any intent to have, for brutality to exist. People come into the organization. I spent 4 years in our recruiting bureau, and I can say that most people, when they come into the police organization, their goal is to work with the police and to work to bring about, a better collaboration between the police and the community. So I think that, and I shouldn't say I think, I know that that is the intent of members or individuals who become police officers. So I would say that that is not the norm when we look at policing in Canada. And we just have to be very careful because, we're looking at things across the border. And of course, when we look at policing, everyone's painted with the same brush. So it's important for us to be very careful.
Devon, I'm sure there's some people who listen to those kinds of answers and say, come on now. We've heard about bad apples. We've seen video, particularly in the United States, of police misconduct. How do you turn that around? How do you build trust with people who right now are so angry with police?
I really have to support those comments by Ingrid. I absolutely agree with that. But I say here's how we build trust going forward. We need to recognize that policing is a significant part of our community. What we're seeing truly is not the norm. The vast majority of police officers would lay their lives on the line for any citizen. And yes, when we see these situations occurring, we have to realize that I believe it's a reflection of society. It's not that police in itself is inherently discriminatory. We need to look at that. This is just a reflection of what's involved in our society, and only working together can we resolve these issues.
And Ingrid, you have been a police officer, were a police officer since 1986, so you've seen a lot of changes, I'm sure, in so many ways when it comes to policing. What advice do you have now that you're retired for police forces to do maybe a better job of building trust with communities?
So I think one thing we want to correct is that the word police force, or words, it's no longer police force, it's police service, and there was a reason force was removed. It was, again, to get away from that stigma that it's about force, but we want it to be clear that it's about the police providing a service to the community. I think what's really important for police chiefs and members of the police organization is that as an organization, we have to ensure, I say we because I still see myself there, but policing have to ensure that we build and develop these relationships with the community, whether they're racialized or disadvantaged, we build those relationships with those communities and the leaders before we get into a crisis situation, such as maybe we're at today. It is very important. And what that takes the police chief and his or her senior ranks to recognize and send a message to those in the organization about the importance of building, community relationships.
All right, really nice hearing from both of you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.